Did no one warn you that being engaged might actually be the hardest season of your relationship? We hear that you're supposed to be glowing and happy and that should be the most exciting time in your life because you get to plan this big party, you're posting dreamy photos, and yet you find yourself second guessing, you find yourself irritated, you find yourself anxious, and even grieving a version of your relationship that you once had. And you're sitting here thinking, did I make the worst decision ever? And I haven't even walked down the aisle yet. And if that's you, I just want you to know that I see you and you are absolutely not crazy. And the reason I can say that is because I have a really unpopular opinion, and that is that engagement shouldn't be easy. I know, I hear it all the time, you're going through dating and you're just like, would he propose already? Like, I just want to be at that next stage. I'm already dreaming of the wedding. I really want to become a mom. Or maybe you're the gentleman in this relationship and you're like, I just can't wait for this pressure to be lifted, for her to be committed to me, and for us to walk towards this. And those are very real feelings. But engagement isn't like a season of reward for surviving dating. It's not okay, pass go and collect $200. It's not just like picking flowers and planning a party and soaking in the romance. It's actually a very refining season. It is a stretch. It is literally molding you into the person who can make the commitment of marriage. And so if you're doing it right, it will actually bring up a lot of fear, insecurity, or pressure points that you didn't even know were there. And that's the point. That's the job of the engagement season. Because suddenly you're not thinking of marriage as this abstract idea. You are looking down the barrel of the gun and saying, this is for me. I'm about to step into this and I get to decide how it looks based on my actions, my thoughts, my circumstances. And that is all up to me and my fiance. And that can be scary because you have to build it. You have to do the work. And it can be really scary because we don't know where to put our attention, where to turn, things like that. You're staring down the life that you actually are about to build. And that can be scary. So you start asking yourself, like, can I even do this? And can we do this? It's not that you're necessarily second guessing the relationship that you two have, but almost the having the truth of marriage and what that all stands for in front of you and being like, can we actually do this well? Is this something that we're ready for? So this is where the real work begins. It's not where we get to sit back and celebrate and be like, hey, we're engaged. But this is where the work begins. And that's the point that most people skip. Most people skip right to the wedding dress shopping or picking out the venue, picking out the food, the caterers, whatever the case may be, instead of looking at the life that they're building. So in this video, we're really going to talk about why engagement is like really significant, not only spiritually, but also in this realm of like building this life, and why it feels so hard for so many couples. There are actually 3 really strong reasons that I can pinpoint. So we're going to talk about those. And I also want to talk about how you can move through the tension to the other side instead of letting it break you, which is really important. I see a lot of engaged couples asking questions on Facebook groups and things about like, I just feel so disconnected. I don't know what to do. Is this even the right thing anymore? So we're going to walk through how you can walk through that tension so then instead of letting it break you in your relationship, you can actually build back better. And I believe that engagement is really a refining season that so many people ignore. So that's why we're going to talk about it, because when you understand it rightly, it will shape you into the spouse that you want to be. and be able to set that foundation for the marriage that you want to have, the family that you want to have, to build this life on top of. Let's talk about what's really going on beneath the surface. So we're going to talk about 3 reasons why engagement feels so hard. And the first one is probably one that you've heard before, and that is that the devil hates marriage, especially in the way that it was designed. And, let's just call it out for what it is. You're stepping into something holy, and the enemy absolutely hates that. So he's going to do everything in his power to cause friction between you and your fiance in your own life, to create that friction and that disharmony, to plant seeds of doubt, to whisper lies to you, to take the easy way out, right? So he'll say things like, oh, well, you're going to marry them anyway, so does it really matter if you wait? Or this is supposed to feel amazing, and so maybe you picked the wrong person if it doesn't feel that way right now. These are lies from the devil. And you know what? He's going to distract you with everything but what matters most. So, you suddenly have a packed schedule. You are making a million wedding decisions, and you're not spending nearly enough time actually talking to your fiance, actually having conversations, actually diving deeper, or praying together. You're just not having the time to do that. And so here's the truth, right? When we give in to those distractions, we're giving him power. But we don't have to do that. We don't have to give the devil any power. We don't have to let him win. So the way out of this, the way through this tension, is to really stay close to our Lord, to really stay close to each other, pray often and pray together, but especially have these conversations with your fiance. This is the person that you are going to walk through the rest of your life with. So if you can't bring things to them in engagement, how are you going to expect to bring things to them throughout your marriage? Bring things to them, have really strong conversations that don't revolve around the wedding, right? Have check-ins, check in on each other. How are you doing? All of those things. Continue to pour into your friendship, because that's the basis of your relationship, instead of just you need to do this, and this is your role as groom, and this is your role as bride, and playing into that part. Really be the main characters of this season of your life and pour into each other, pour into yourself, pour into your relationship most of all. And that can look like conversing with one another for sure, going on dates, continuing to date each other, pursue each other, but also pray together. Bring it before the Lord, and don't let that piece peter out because other things seem more important on the surface. Talk about everything, not just the guest list and the honeymoon plans, but everything. And when you notice that tension creeping in, don't run from it. I want you to call it out and come back to the center. Now, the second reason why engagement can feel really hard for a lot of couples is something that no one is talking about, but it's that the chase is ending much quicker. So here's something that I wish more people understood, and that is that engagement today isn't happening at the same level of commitment that it once did. The reason why is because dating has changed a lot. Dating has changed so much. It used to be slower. It used to be more intentional. And slower, I don't mean elongated like it is today. It was shorter, but slower in the way that it unfolded. It was more intentional. People got to know each other's character before diving into anything deep emotionally or physically, right? So by the time a couple got engaged, there was still this sense of pursuit. It was okay, yeah, we are going towards this goal together, and I'm still going to learn more about you. I'm still going to pursue you. There was a sense of anticipation, things that boundaries that hadn't been crossed yet that, we're going to cross when we get there. And a growth of that connection. It's just deepening in that season of engagement. And that used to happen more in historically, we can trace it back, but also that was what we have been sold, right? We've been sold that from rom-coms. We've been sold that from books. We've been sold that that is the type of romance that we're looking for. So when that is no longer the case, and I'll explain why in a moment, we feel like we've been gypped, and we feel like this shouldn't be the way that it is, right? Because now everything's flipped, right? We start physical, we move fast, we blur the lines of commitment really early on. So by the time we're engaged, especially because dating has been elongated, the chase feels like it's over, right? It feels like that's the finish line, although it very much isn't, because the reality is that should really feel like the starting line. That should really feel like, okay, this is when we really get the wheels turning. And so there's research, psychological research, that tells us that when the chase ends, conversation naturally starts to slow. And this was, we're designed this way in order for our relationship to make space for other things. So when the chase ended in marriage, you were able to have more space for physical intimacy that you previously had with conversation. Does that make sense? So now, with this chase ending much earlier in engagement, or even in this elongated dating period, we see this tension because there's no more of this slow rhythm that makes room for this deeper intimacy and sacrifice within this committed relationship with each other, because that belongs in marriage, right? And so what most people are experiencing nowadays is this slowdown way before the safety and permanency of marriage. And this is really causing havoc on our nervous systems and our emotional life, and just like in every area of our lives, which can make engagement feel like a really weird limbo. Like, okay, we've done the thing, we've committed to each other, but yet we still haven't actually done that. So you feel less connected, but while expecting to be feeling closer than ever. And that can be really confusing. It can send you mixed signals, and honestly, it can be disheartening. So the question is, what do we do? If this is the reality of the different situations, what do we do about it? And my best piece of advice would be to double down on connection. Do not let the conversation slow. And sometimes I see engaged couples go so far the other way in order to try to reconnect. And what that looks like is kind of crossing boundaries or brushing issues under the rug because you just want to be close to each other. Where the reality is that is hurting more than it's helping. Think of like a wound, okay? And some people think that that's kind of like a bandage that closes the wound in order for it to heal. That crossing a physical boundary or brushing an issue under the rug just to maintain this idea of closeness is really bringing this wound, closing it so that it can heal. When in reality, it's kind of ripping it apart even more and exposing that wound to air and bacteria and all the bad things. This is a really gross example, but it can really start to take over the entire body. So what you want to do is really double down on connection without crossing boundaries. In fact, hold even stronger boundaries within your engagement. So that looks like keeping physical boundaries really clear and strong. It looks like making intentional time to talk about things other than wedding planning. Yes, other than wedding planning, there's still a world that exists outside of that bubble. And it's also the perfect time to ask really hard questions, really get to know the person that you are about to commit your life to, and dream about your life together. Not just like the wedding, but dream about what kind of family that you might want to have one day, how your life is going to look when you wake up next to each other every day. What is that going to feel like? Dream about that type of thing. And also call each other higher, even when it's uncomfortable. So this goes directly against that like shoving things under the rug. If there is something that comes up, address it. I cannot say that enough. Address it, call each other higher. That is the kind of pursuit that really builds something real and builds a life that you can actually build a real committed marriage on top of, and not just something that you're brushing off for something fake to take its place. Now, the third reason why couples are finding engagement really hard is because they're often running from the growth that's required. Remember, I said earlier that engagement is a refining season. And it's hard to hear that you might be running from this growth, but it's so important. Engagement is not supposed to be easy. It is a refining season, and we resist this refinement a lot of times because growth hurts, okay? And it pokes at our pride, our ego, and our independence. Those things are screaming at us saying, we got this. What are you talking about? And where this growth is really calling us to depend on our fiance, to depend on God for our provision, to depend on others instead of being independent. It is calling us to pour into those people in our lives, especially our fiance, and build a life together instead of thinking we can do it all on our own. That's the point, right? That is the point of all of this. So marriage isn't just the next step in your relationship. And if you see it that way, that's problematic, because it's really a covenant that will demand more sacrifice than you've likely ever made before. This is a very different sense of relationship than dating or engagement. So this engagement season, this is where you begin training for that. It's like the bridge. It's this before and this after that takes training. It's not a switch that you flip at the altar. It is, you have to get there. You have to cross the bridge. You have to do the work. And that work is in the time of engagement. Because here's the thing, you're going to hit trials. You're going to find things, whether it be little or big things. But the way that you respond to them is going to shape the arc of your future marriage. So the way that you respond to the small, little, insignificant trial or the really big one that threatens to derail the whole marriage, that is what is going to shape the arc of your marriage. So don't run. Don't run from this growth. Lean into it and really ask God what He's trying to teach you in this season. And ask your fiance how they're growing, right? This is not a one-way street. It is a two-way street. You should both be on the same page with this is a season of growth, and even talk about how you can grow together. What are some ways that you really could make room to grow together? Maybe it's communication. Maybe it's learning more about your finances. Maybe it's setting your life up and thinking about the things in the future in a much more intentional way than you had been before. And decide to do that together. Because this really isn't about getting through this season of engagement. It's about becoming ready for this life that you want to build and this marriage that you're about to commit to. So if you're in this season right now and you're feeling the pressure and the confusion and maybe even the emotional whiplash of engagement, let me just say this. It doesn't have to be this way. It's just that no one told you the truth about what this season is really asking of you. And if you reframe it to, okay, this is a season of growth and I need to lean into it, you're going to stop resisting and it's going to be much easier. So you don't need to panic. You don't need to push everything down. You definitely don't need to figure it out alone. And that's the really good news. And that's exactly why I created Dearly Beloved. It's not some fluff course about how to plan a pretty wedding or memorize your vows. It's real formation, and it's deep and it's personal and it's tailored to you and your relationship. And it's real formation for real relationships in the modern world. Because if you're going to say yes to a lifelong commitment, you really deserve to have more than a cookie cutter prep, right? You deserve to feel ready emotionally, spiritually, practically for the life that you're about to build. And I can help you with those tools. So I encourage you, if you're in this season, apply now. Applications are open. There's a link below where you can find it. Spots are limited, and I would love to walk with you through this season. Don't forget to hit subscribe, share with a friend. We talk about this type of thing every week, and so I encourage you to come back and get even more. I'm cheering for you.